Malo so I fua malalangi ma whaftai mo le nei wanoa whaau i whai ei ni whaasoa atu tatou o kalami talo lava. Talofa Maori, I'd like to acknowledge and pay tribute to traditional owners from the Ngunnawal and Ngambri land. I'm currently here in Canberra at the Australian National University. I would like to pay tribute to elders past and emerging, as well as acknowledging all First Nations and Indigenous who are on this online platform. But more importantly, my leaders, as well as colleagues who are joining us from the Pacific, or as if my friend Taholo in New York, who are able to be a part of this important summit. Thank you for the opportunity to share to Talanoa. Now, the theme of this second conference on small states is shared identity. And I found this the main reason why I wanted to come about and share some thoughts in this. While it is on the area of jobs and skills, I believe in this theme of shared identity as something profound, for it will trigger and has triggered many innovations and also ways forward in terms of relationship between Australia and the rest of the Pacific. Now, my first caveat here is that I'm not going to provide a list of jobs and skills. I think our learned colleagues, the economists and entrepreneurs within our congregation online will probably provide this through our conversations. However, I rather would like to focus my reflection on this journey of building or constructing a shared identity that is between Australia and the Pacific Islands, by highlighting from my research the trends, the lessons learned from history and the contemporary, the challenges and opportunities, because I feel like this will help us think deeper about the jobs and skills in this current endeavor. More importantly, my new sort of area of research around just transitions. We are at that crossroad of post-COVID-19, the need to move from fossil fuel to low carbon development economies is an area where I'm fascinated in terms of what these economies would look like for the Pacific. And as a researcher raised and educated in the Pacific, I feel like I'm very privileged to work and research here in Australia. I'm also like to say the other privilege that we have here is that we are, through this panel, we're only showing sort of male views, and that we do not have women in our panel. But that is also another view that we need to take on board. But here, this privilege of being educated in Australia, this research, I hope, brings Australia along with the Pacific, not Australia leading the Pacific, but works along the Pacific. I believe in research that contribute to the Pacific, but also what Australia can learn from the Pacific. Now, these thoughts complement what economic statistics and predictions will say in terms of our thinking in research and policy. But I'd like to, if anything that you take away from my thoughts here is the importance of context culture, well-being, environment, the climate, and relationships when we think about jobs and skills for Australia and our work in the Pacific. Now, at the offset, shared identity is something not new. This endeavor has been part of the Canberra Pact when we saw in 1944 the South Pacific Commission established through technical cooperation. We saw this in the Pacific Islands, the formation in 1971, through political security and the ideas around the Pacific Way. We see this in our regional architecture, where Australia and New Zealand are a part of, and through the latest Blue Pacific, the 2050 strategy that tells us the way forward for the Pacific. It's important that this shared vision is a part of that, takes into account, works alongside, complements these visions of the Pacific, not creating new ones that do not acknowledge and walk away. That by thinking about the shared jobs, I hope that we also take into account that we do have a shared geography and history. We have shared vulnerabilities, and that we have an opportunity and responsibility through shared learning and solution. So shared geography and history, we know that this region, and the people who occupy are proud navigators who have come through conquest, but also through cooperation, have led to many different civilizations. And part of this, we see it in today. During the times of colonialism, we saw that Pacific peoples were brought into Australia to fill jobs and skills through the plantation economies in the colonies, as well as the Commonwealth in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Now we see a reincarnation of that through the labor mobility program, which we see as of today. It's important that we learn from this history, what came out of it, and the need. There's some questions that we need to think about in today, that while we're catering to Australia's labor shortage in agriculture, we are also not playing fair in terms of the Pacific's labor shortage. As Taholo has mentioned, I also heard this in the last few months when I was in Fiji. The word brain drain, was being not just written within the policy documents, but pronounced. People were saying that we are feeling the effect of brain drain from this labor mobility. So are we thinking about, how much are we thinking about in terms of working with the Pacific in these programs? And how much are we thinking about the care programs and the reintegration of Pacific peoples to return to the islands to work in this? In the area of shared vulnerabilities, it's important that we take into consideration the impact of climate change. We know that the youth bulge, mainly in Melanesia, impacts us all in terms of our work and the need to make sure that we alleviate these economies. These are just some of the many vulnerabilities that there are, including natural disasters. We need to take into our shared vision, take heed of these vulnerabilities, that these are not just opportunities for Australia, but we need to strengthen and empower island countries and communities. The jobs and skills should meet the vulnerabilities of youth bulge, threats of climate change, but they also need to be contextualized based on island cultures and also about the questions around sustainability. Now, in terms of shared learning and solutions, as I've said, we need to take into account the recent 2050 strategy of the Blue Pacific. The countries have identified 7 pillars. We need to complement these shared priorities, not creating new ones. Work on these visions that support Australia, but at the same time empower the Pacific. Education, part of the education sector. We need more and more investment in this area. We've heard from Taholo and others the need for greater opportunities for Pacific people to be educated in our universities. But I would like to say we need to go more. We need to see Pacific researchers inside Pacific universities. They not just have to be there as researchers or teachers, they need to be the leaders. Our Pacific population and diaspora need to envision and see people in leadership. Part of that are in government, but also within universities. It's not just important that we learn about the Pacific, we also need to have people from the Pacific in these places. At the same time, we need to cater for our diaspora. They are the link between Australia and the Pacific. How much are we investing in opportunities on e-commerce or opportunities that link our economies here and the trade from the Pacific that cater for the diaspora? And of course, I'd like to finish again, coming back to trust transitions. COVID has meant that our countries closed their borders. It showed their resilience, but their systems can also survive. However, the systems also need regional and international integration. And this is where we can come through in terms of our thinking and our work in policy research around jobs and skills. Just transitions means moving away from fossil fuel economies and low carbon development. But are we ready with the jobs and skills that meet some of what would say people-centered development that the Pacific have been pushing, which means jobs that are for community, that are for community-based initiatives and priorities that incorporate traditional and local knowledge in institutions that are also nature-based solutions, jobs that are not just land-based, but also for the ocean. These are just some reflections. I hope that it will help us in our thinking as we move into the next session of a talanoa about thinking more deeper about jobs and skills in our shared identity. After.